So Day for All People is our annual lobby day for our organization. It's an opportunity for people all throughout the Commonwealth to come together, come to the state capitol, Richmond, visit with their legislators, talk to them about our policy priority issues, and also learn more about our policy issues through informative workshops. We have about 400 people who came in this year, actually a little over 450, so we're really excited about the numbers that have come in. Virginia Interfaith engages people of faith and goodwill to advocate equity in Virginia's policy and practices through education, prayer, and action. So what we really do is resource faith communities and people of goodwill with resources on how to engage state-level policy work. For a lot of people, their entry point or their only point of engagement when it comes to politics is hopefully voting. But we know civic engagement goes beyond just voting if we're going to be truly involved in the justice work, particularly here in the Commonwealth. So once you vote, what's the next step you need to take? And so we believe the next step you need to take is really engaging with the people that you voted into office. And so we give resources and tools that will assist people in doing that. So how do you email your legislator? How do you call your legislator? How do you schedule visits for your legislator? How do you testify on bills? And so really a bulk of our work is education, because we recognize that if we get more voices together calling collectively for justice, we're able to move mountains.
That was amazing. Did that bell, ringing bells bother you?
That's good. That's a good background noise.
All right.
Churchy noise.
All right.
No.
That was great. So,
Was the sound okay?
Oh,
or
that was great.
I think it's okay. If it's
do I need to talk
answer,
loud?
we
It
could
was an
try to get
important
it again.
answer.
Oh, I don't know if I could say it
That was
again,
so
but I
good.
can.
We've got it that way.
Okay,
But
then it's
But
let's.
you heard her clearly.
Yeah.
I don't mind a little.
Okay.
There might
Thank
be
you.
a subtle.
That's
ballad.
no, she's a pastor.
Ding.
All right. So you're in a way you're making advocacy accessible.
Yes.
How is that? People don't feel that they have access to it. So today, when we were following you at the GA and you were meeting with legislators, what was that about, making it accessible?
Absolutely. You know, for a lot of people, when you start talking about policy, even saying the word policy, it can feel like something that's really. Now that's a crazy noise.
This is tough. Oh, wait. All right.
Ready.
I think it might be easier to start with buckets.
Okay.
That requires less of my
Reverend
brain.
Doctor, our new executive director, could you, for the layperson,
Sure.
talk about the main buckets of work that Interfaith Center is involved in?
Absolutely. So our policy priority areas really rest in 4 buckets. It's housing, worker justice, criminal justice reform, and health equity. But we also have a 5th bucket that's not really policy work, but some policy priorities can fall into it, which is our civic engagement work. So we have launched a lot of different initiatives. One in particular that I love, last year we did Souls to the Polls. So again, it's about voter mobilization, just beyond voter registration. How do we get people who are registered to vote to actually get to the polls and exercise that wonderful right?
So I wasn't there, but I heard, if you can, in a nutshell, you had music and food. How did that work?
We did. So
You could add souls to the
absolutely. So our Souls to the Polls initiative, this was our first time doing something on this level. We last summer went down to Florida to watch an organization called Faith in Florida that does Souls to the Polls events all across the state of Florida, really using the faith community to galvanize people to come out to vote. And so we saw kind of what they did in Florida, and we're saying, well, how can we emulate that here in Virginia, but putting a Virginia spin on it? So we were very ambitious and did 3 Souls to the Polls event on one Sunday in the Richmond area. And so we had food trucks where people could come out and get free lunch after they voted. We had DJs with a ton of music. We had a whole bunch of volunteers who came out because as people were coming up, we gathered names so that we could follow up and get the people even hopefully deeper involved in our work. So some of the people who who came to Souls to the Polls are actually here today for our Day for All People. So very proud of that work. And because we're in a pretty big election here in Virginia. We have elections every year, but this year we have the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and our whole House of Delegates that are up for election. We're going to expand our Souls to the Polls initiative. So we're looking to do it in more areas around the Commonwealth.
So
So Virginia Interfaith Center is getting a lot more cool.
We are. We've been cool for a long time, and so our cool just continues to expand as we, want to pull more people into our work and really diversify the voices that we have at the table. We have a really strong base, but we're doing intentional work of outreach to young adults and college students, and again, broadening that base, so it's not just people of faith that can engage us. So even if you may not be in an organized religion group, if you're a person that believes in justice, we want to invite you into the work that we're doing. Well, my entry point to working with Virginia Interfaith came back during 2020, a year that was transitional for so many people. I myself was coming out of working in faith-based work, pretty heavy, over 20 years of experience working in different capacities in local congregations, and was really just looking to do something more. Still wanted to do something ministry focused, and social justice has always been a thread throughout everything I've done professionally. And Virginia Interfaith was just a perfect match for me. And coming into the work and doing the capital punishment abolition work, I saw the power of the collective voice. So it's one thing to raise your voice for justice, one thing for a congregation to raise their voice for justice, but if we can get multiple congregations and more people to say the same thing at the same time, we're able to really impact change and change history. And so being a part of that campaign just added fuel to the fire that was already in me to really do social justice work and resource people of faith who are passionate about the work but just don't know how to do it. And so I'm really excited to come into this position and continue to build on this wonderful foundation that's already been laid by so many great leaders that came before me. So I'm excited to see what's next for Virginia Interfaith.
And then this begs one last question.
Yes.
But Virginia has such a painful history of racial injustice.
Sure.
A legacy of slavery and the Confederacy.
Sure.
How do you navigate that in this role and in the inequities that you see on a racial level in Richmond and across the Commonwealth?
Sure. I think a really important part about the work that we do is being honest about the foundation that we stand on. There are the good and bad things that are part of the history of the state. And if we can't be truthful about where we've been, it's going to really be difficult to move forward in an effective, impactful way, and to not shy away from the difficult conversations. Sometimes when you bring up history, even sometimes when you bring up the word race, people automatically get uncomfortable with the conversation. But instead of moving away from the conversation, we're going to invite people to lean in and keeping the work centered where the work needs to be centered. There are a lot of injustices that are still happening. There are a lot of systems that still need to be disrupted and injustices that need to be addressed. And so we're going to keep the main thing and continue to do the work that we're doing in a way we're doing it in integrity. That's the best way I got.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
I think one of the most powerful pieces about our work is the diversity of the voices that we have at the table. And anytime you can look into a space and see diversity, not just based on gender, not just based on race, but also based on age and faith perspective, it's a really beautiful and powerful thing. So days like this just continue to inspire me and know that we're on the right path. And our event has continued to grow over the years. And so every year watching those numbers tick up, so that hopefully that means that people really see this as a place where their voice can be valued and heard, and their perspective is invited into the space. And although we know sometimes differences can come up in such a way where disagreement comes into the space and people, it becomes a place that's not impactful, or it can become ineffective conversation, I believe that we are creating and adding to an environment that really holds space for difference, and in a way where it's not ignored, but it's celebrated. And I think that people are drawn to that with us. And so it's an inspiration for me to come into these days, because it reminds me why I do the work that I do.